listening to the LOZ Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LOZ Podcast Network. My name is Ken Lawler. I'm the host of the LOZ Podcast Network and the developer of the LOZ app. And if you're at Lake of the Ozarks, you need to get the app. If you're watching this, you already have it because we actually broadcast through the app. And we talk to people at the lake through the LOZ Podcast Network who are realtors, who own businesses. We talk to people who are just faces around town. We try to give you the backstory on locals. And that's the thing about the LOZ app and the LOZ Podcast Network is we focus on local. So everybody who's in the app, who's a sponsor, they're a locally owned business. They're the ones you see out at church. They're the ones you see at the restaurants, and you might even go boating with them. But it's exciting for us to kind of bring those stories to the forefront. And a couple gentlemen are joining us today that I've known for years. Actually used to just sip coffee with them at the Starbucks here in town. And they are doing quite a bit of work here at the lake with Injury Attorney. And it's we have the Price and Randle guys on, so I'm going to bring them on here right now. Hello, Matthew Price and Dwayne Randle.
Morning,
Hey,
Ken.
Ken.
Welcome to the LOC Podcast Network, buddy.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I was telling everybody, we used to just hang out at Starbucks for, I don't know, a couple hours a day and just kind of chit-chat and talk about life. And I don't know, Dwayne, we talked about some of your cows and different things you had on your farm and just all kinds of stuff. But you guys have really, in the last year especially, have really gone to the forefront here at the lake and made a major push with a couple of initiatives that you guys have going. But I want to kind of get into the history a little bit and let you guys tell our viewers, you know, how did you get to Lake of the Ozarks? Are you locals? Are you somebody who moved here? Matt, why don't you start with your story? How did you get to Lake of the Ozarks?
Sure. So I grew up here. My dad was a teacher at Camdenton, and my mom worked at the hospital. And so I went to Camdenton. My wife went to Camdenton. My kids all graduated from Camdenton. So I've seen the lake really change a lot since we moved here. I think we moved here in like 1980 or 81, somewhere around in there. So, you know, in those days we had the one lane going each way to the strip. I lived out in Montreal, Missouri. So we were far from that crowd, but once or twice a year, we'd get in the car and drive all the way there and sit in the traffic to go play skee ball and walk around and do the water slides. But so we were primarily in Camdenton with Camdenton schools and everything. And then, of course, went to college and then came back and started practicing here about 25 years ago now. So I've actually, before that, even in law school, I was a law clerk down here. So in the late 90s.
The lake's in your blood. The lake's in your blood for sure.
Exactly. Yep.
And Dwayne, how about you?
Well, Ken, I moved here in 2006. I moved here from Wichita, Kansas. I had met my wife in Wichita, and she didn't grow up at the lake, but her family did. Her grandparents on one side had a resort. It's still operating, not owned by them, but it's still in existence. And her other set of grandparents, her grandfather was a dentist here back in the day, which is now Sip Coffee House. And he built that building. And her grandmother was a teacher at Camdenton. So a lot of people knew her family, and she wanted to come back to this area. And I thought, well, why not? I didn't know what Lake of the Ozarks was. I was like everyone else that's not familiar with it. I thought they meant Branson, and I came here, and you know, I never thought I'd live here, but here I am, and it's been, you know, almost 20 years now. So I'm glad we're here, and it's been a really good life for us.
And it certainly has changed in 20 years. I mean, I've been down here for a little over 25, and you know, not a full timer, but most of the summer. And I mean, I can remember, you know, when you used to have a hard time finding milk and bread after November 1st. You know, it's really grown. There's a lot going on. It's become a full-time destination for a lot of people. And that really lends itself to, you know, what you guys do as well, because, you know, I would imagine that, you know, 15 years ago, most of your business would come in the summers when the people would come in, and then it would get kind of quiet. But it's not quiet anymore during the winter, is it?
No, not at all. No,
it's not.
And every year it seems to increase. You know, the lake offers everything that most suburbs do now. And I think people are realizing it's a good full-time place to live. There's good schools, a good community. And, you know, I think the secret got out, especially during COVID. So here we are now, growing community.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, we really, and there's a lot of people that are coming in from, not just the surrounding states, which is normally what you see down here. People coming in from just right around Missouri. But boy, there's a lot of people coming from California and from Colorado and Texas, and you're seeing just a new influx of people that have found this little gem that we have, Lake of the Ozarks, right? And it's kind of cool in a lot of ways. In some ways, it's a little different, but I think everybody, would rather have it this way. We'd rather have full-time residents, people who are, spending money year round, who are living here year round, keeping businesses open. And, there's just so much going on. And coming up this weekend is the big kickoff. We got the big Memorial Day, and it's actually a week early this year, so everybody's, I think, scrambling this week to try to get it fit in. Now, you guys, I'm sure, when you see the big weekends like this, your business probably increases during these weekends, right?
Sure. I would say that that's true, but there's a bit of a lag time. More people here, more traffic, more water traffic. We see boat accidents, car accidents, but people in the initial flurry of an accident, they're worried about hospital treatment, all
Right.
that stuff. But so sometimes we'll see a bit of a lag before we start getting the calls. It's really when they encounter the insurance company that things go south for them, and they get frustrated and they get jerked around. And then they call and they say, what is even going on here? We don't understand any of this. The insurance company is telling me one thing, but that doesn't make sense. And that's where we really engage.
Well, and
Yeah, and
because you have both, automobile and boating here, like you said. And so, that really is a little different than what a lot of attorneys in other cities face, right? So, but you guys have decided to tackle it head on, Dwayne, and you've come up with Drive Safe, Boat Safe. So tell us a little bit about what that initiative is. I know you guys came out really strong with this about 6 or 8 months ago. And what is the feeling that Drive Safe, Boat Safe, what do you want to give the public on this?
Well, first and foremost, Matt and I, we live here at the lake. We drive on these roads. We're out on these waters. And the whole purpose of Drive Safe, Boat Safe is just an initiative to remind people, like with driving, buckle up, phones down, wear your seatbelt. If you wear your seatbelt, you might not have to call us. And put those cell phones down when you're driving. It's just so incredibly dangerous. I think it's become more dangerous than drunk driving in many ways because not to defend drunk driving in any way, but I think sometimes those folks, if they've had a few too many drinks, they're being extra careful when they're driving, even though they shouldn't be. But then you'll be on the highway and you'll see somebody go by you like this driving. It's insane. I mean, they are completely taking their attention away from the road while they're driving down the road in a multi-ton vehicle. It's really scary. And with the boating, of course, there's a lot more boats out on the water. The boats get bigger and bigger. And, if you're going to have a good time at one of the restaurants or local establishments, have a designated boat driver so that everyone's in control of what they're doing and staying safe and paying attention to the boat laws and the navigational laws so that everyone can have a good time and get home safely. That's really the whole purpose. Is Matt and I don't like to see anybody get hurt. We don't want that to happen, but it's going to happen. And when it does, we want to help those people. But ultimately, prevention is much better than us having a big, long case list.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, just to throw a little shameless plug in for the LOZ app, we have a whole list of boat captains in the LOZ app that you can go to, and you can contact them at any point, even if you're out at the bars, and you can actually see if they can get your boat home, or better yet, use one of the ride services like Lake Ride Pros, get home, and then go back the next day and get your boat. It's going to be fine sitting in a slip. I mean, I think people get so got to get home-itis, right? And they just don't understand that one silly little mistake is going to take them down a road that is painful. And luckily you guys are there to help with that, and help try to mitigate some of that. But it certainly is a lot to think about when you're taking 10 or 12 of your friends out on a $500,000 boat on the Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, in every boat accident, really, I mean, I can't say this necessarily about auto accidents, but every single boat accident that I've seen was 100% preventable. And Matt and I have both worked tragic, terrible boat cases where people have died or have been horrifically injured and have permanent consequences. And every one of those was preventable.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people get a little bit apprehensive about getting lawyers involved because they're like, I just don't know what is involved in this. I don't know what they're going to want from me. Do I have to pay them up front? Is there, there's a lot of things that go through their thought process when they're calling you guys. Give me a little bit about, what you want to tell people about, hey, if you've had an accident, if you've been involved in an accident, and you need help, what are some of the things to ease their mind, and how do they deal with you guys?
The first thing is sooner rather than later is always good. We want to talk to people before they make dumb decisions with the insurance company. And so many of the insurers, the agents around town. I'm friends with lots of agents, but when it comes to the claim, you're not dealing with the agent anymore. You're dealing with someone that's located in Illinois or Atlanta, and their job is to disbelieve everything you say and do and minimize your claim and minimize everything you say. And so the sooner people get a hold of us and get some good advice on how to deal with that and counter those type of tactics, the better it goes, the less stress they're under. People do call and say, the first thing some people will say is, are you going to bill me for this call? And we don't send out bills. We get paid on what we collect. So I can talk to you for 10 minutes or 10 hours. It's not going to impact the bill. And nobody calls us and gets stuck with a bill just for calling us. The important thing is to go get good advice as soon as possible, because nothing else is put on hold. All the other parts of your claim, your medical treatment, the insurance company, your property damage, all that stuff is going to continue to roll. And I mean, every week I talk to somebody who got offered $1,000, signed a release with the insurance company, finished their claim, and then realized they need a surgery or something else. And they say, what do I do? And I say, you're done. It's just so hard to undo that unless they lied to you. It's hard to undo that type of commitment that you've made and signed and cashed a check. So, I think dispelling some of the common fears about contacting a lawyer is part of the reassuring process that we do as soon as we start talking with someone.
And Dwayne, that's what Matt's saying there. I've had that experience too, where you have an accident and an hour later the insurance guy's calling you. And you get that, hey, we're going to record this call, for training purposes, or we're going to record this call because we want to get all this down and tell me exactly what happened. And you don't want to rush into that. You don't want to rush that phone call, and you really want to talk to a lawyer first before you get that phone call in. Correct?
Correct, because they'll take anything you say out of context and use it against you. You might, in a jokingly way, they might ask you, is there anything you could have done to avoid the accident? And you could, sarcastically say, well, I could have driven my truck into the ditch, and they'll somehow use that and say, well, you said you could have avoided the accident. And it's just ridiculous. And, we don't take every case. I mean, people call us and maybe they don't need a lawyer, but they still need the advice and they need to know what their options are. Because as Matt mentioned earlier, we're seeing an increase in companies doing something to the effect of they'll offer you a certain amount up front. Then they'll say they'll pay your medical bills, but there's a limit on it. And it sounds all fine and good. And they'll say, oh, you don't need to call a lawyer. We'll take care of you. And like Matt said, they find out their injuries are much worse, or there's something that was misrepresented in what they told somebody versus what they signed. And, it's always better to just talk to a lawyer and get some advice up front and know what your options are. You don't have to hire somebody right away. It just depends on the circumstance. Every case is different.
But talking to a lawyer first is the best way to go, because if you start talking to insurance companies and you start talking to giving police reports and you give that's where you guys want to get in before it and make sure that everybody knows what's happening and that they're the best protected they can be. And they can only do that by really talking to you guys first. So it's like, I love that advice, Matt. Don't wait. Call us. I'm not going to charge you to call us. Just call us and we'll let you know where you're at, and we'll let you know if it's something that we can help you with, but don't wait for that call.
Right. And there's a funny thing that I've noticed over the years is that the insurance industry has been very good at making people feel guilty for using the insurance they paid for. They don't want to do it. They're afraid to make a claim, even if it's on their own insurance. People often call and will say something to the effect of, I'm not the suing type. Well, neither are Matt and I. We don't rush out and file a lawsuit. I mean, it's not worth the trouble and the expense half the time, and it's usually unnecessary, but sometimes it does become necessary. But somehow people feel like they're doing something wrong by talking to an attorney. And I don't understand that, other than it's just been kind of how the model's been sold to people. They just feel like they're the ones in the wrong because they want to talk to an attorney, and it has nothing to do with that. You have to protect your interests and your rights, because the insurance company is never going to do that.
It's an interesting spin that if Joanne and I both go to church, we're Christians. And so we're around a lot of church people, and church people oftentimes will be very anti-litigation. And so someone will get into an accident and they'll say, well, I'll just, whatever the insurance adjuster is telling me, that must be what I need to do. Or I don't even want to make a claim. And if you ask that same person, hey, a tree falls on your house, are you going to make a claim against your insurance policy? Well, of course I am. Okay, now somebody hits you and breaks your back. Are you going to make a claim on their policy? Oh, I don't know about that. It doesn't make any sense. And the insurance industry has really spun that and worked those things, especially with fairly conservative people, to make it feel like you're doing something wrong. I mean, you're paying premiums, the other driver's paying premiums, and these premiums are paying to protect drivers who maybe just make a mistake or just sometimes bad things happen. And you paid that premium, and yet cashing in on that to just hold the insurance company accountable to do what they've already promised to do and taken money from you to do is somehow given some stigma, and I just don't understand it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, the insurance adjusters are not incentivized to pay more out. I mean, their job's not to give out as much as they can, right? Those aren't the guys that are getting, promoted.
They don't get promoted, no.
Right. So you're already on a stacked deck. I mean, when you're talking to an insurance adjuster, it's not a fair playing field. They're incentivized to give you as little as possible. That's how they make money. They're not a charity. They're in a money-making business. So you need someone who can fight on your side. And when you do have somebody who you want fighting on your side, you want them to be successful, and you want them to be guys who are really good at it. And I love that we talked a little bit before the show. I said, hey, how much have you guys recovered for people? Could you even have a number on it? And you kind of did some math, and it's a big number. You guys are good. And, over 85 million recovered. I mean, this is Lake of the Ozarks. This is not New York. This is not Miami. This is not LA. I mean, you guys are doing a really good job for people, and you're helping get that money back in their pocket when no one else was there for them.
Yeah.
Well, it's just. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, for whatever reason, at the Lake of the Ozarks, growing up here, everything else, then interacting with people from Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, there's a bit of a stigma that people around the lake, maybe contractors and business people, they're just not maybe reliable, or they don't reach this level of service that you might see in the city. And what I found in 25 years of practice in law is if you know your clients, if you call people back, if you look at their case and actually work on it, you're doing a great job at that point, and you're exceeding to a certain extent the expectation that people have for lake people in general, but then when you add in things that we do, like from the time you call us, like we're on top of it, we're looking at the policies, we're digging in and asking details about medical treatment and trying to figure out, have you gotten all the advice you need medically to get the right treatment so you can, number one, identify what's wrong, number two, stop the bleeding, number three, get well. Then we can actually make a fair measurement of what the loss is worth. So there's so many things that we're doing systematically in every case to make sure that we're maximizing the value and minimizing the chaos for the person that got hurt. That, I feel like when you say, okay, well, I want to hire a city lawyer because obviously city lawyers are better. There's great lawyers in the city, but there's also great lawyers right here. Mm-hmm. And, to go out of the area just because of some stigma that, it's not true. We've got great lawyers in this area that can handle these type of cases. And we've done it to the point where we're, sniffing down almost $100 million
right.
in recoveries. You know, I feel good about that, but I also feel even better about if you take a look at our Google reviews, if you talk to people we've represented around, you know, hopefully you're going to hear good things. Hopefully you're going to hear positive experiences. And that's really what we want to do on every case. We want to do the absolute best job we can to maximize what our client puts in their pocket. Because at the end of the day, we can't undo the accident. We can only deliver money.
Yeah. And Dwayne, I mean, it's important that, you know, I think also you are down here at the lake. You understand boating. You understand what's going on at the lake area. That's a big plus if you have a problem on with a boating issue, or if you have a problem in one of these back roads. I mean, you guys know the area. You know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So having that extra expertise, I think is a feather in your cap for having a local law firm that can really handle something that might happen here down at the Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, absolutely. And a lot of attorneys will advertise in this area, but they're from Kansas City or St. Louis or Springfield or Columbia. And they just don't know this area like we do. And an important thing about Price and Randle is that it is Price and it is Randle. Two attorneys. It's just us. You are going to be represented by Matt or me, but you're really represented by both because we know each other's cases. We go over each other's cases twice a month. We do a case list review, so that we're always up to speed on each other's work. And you're not going to get, you know, shuffled off to some associate or some inexperienced attorney. It's just Matt or I. And when you call and talk to an attorney, you're getting one of us.
You guys made it easy to call you. Like, I love your number. I mean, it is so simple to recognize. I don't know how you got that or how much you had to pay to get that one, but man, 444-5555. I mean, that is a great number. You can remember that even if things are going crazy and you just had a wreck, or if you're, you know, out and about, that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, those fun numbers have kind of become a personal injury thing, but across the board with attorneys in every state. But it is easy to remember, and we want people to be able to contact us and make it as easy as possible.
And a shout out to our friends at Starbucks. 2 weeks ago, I got some type of sandwich and they handed it out the drive-through window, and it didn't have my name written on it or any message. It just had our 573-444-555 number.
That's the beauty of being in a small town, isn't it? I mean, that's the beauty.
Yeah.
You get to know everybody. Well, guys, I really appreciate you coming on the show with us today. You know, at the LOZ Podcast Network and the LOZ app, we try to give the stories for locals. That's what we do. Everything in our app is local. Everything that we do is local. And the fact that you guys are local and a local firm that can help anyone with any kind of injury claim. Is there do you guys do other stuff? Is it all injury stuff, or do you help people in any other kind of law?
Well, injury law encompasses quite a bit. I mean, it's not just auto wrecks or boat accidents. We do quite a bit of workers' compensation claims, and
Okay.
there's things that fall within the gamut of all of that. You've got your slip and fall premises liability cases. I've done several shooting cases. Dog bites, unfortunately, happen a lot around here, and they can be really devastating. There's a lot of things that fall within what we do.
Well, I could encourage you guys, if you have any problem, give these guys a call. It's easy. 444-5555. I can't even remember it. I just saw it. Guys, you guys are friends. I appreciate you coming on. I think you're doing a great service to the people at the lake down here. Hopefully we'll talk to you here as we get into some more podcasts. But thanks for giving us the story of how you got to the lake and what you guys do. And I think you guys are really helping people when they need it most. And that's got to kind of fulfill you guys with, you know, everybody's got to do something in life, right? But you get to help people. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. You know, I think that when you talk about when a person's hurt, one of the things you see is, unfortunately, we can only deliver money, but they're looking for some like shelter in the storm or a pause from the chaos, and to have those questions answered and to kind of be in a spot where you can say, okay, the burden's off me, you know, they can take over this, you know, I've met with them, I've seen them, I know where their office is. It's just, it's so huge when you're going through the other trauma of, oh, can I get back to work? I have to go through all these surgeries, you know, the insurance company's hounding me. So really, you know, one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on, I think, is not only recoveries and the amount of the recoveries, but just the peace of mind that we're trying to bring people as they come here, and they don't feel like they just got put in some kind of cattle chute and they're just a number. But, you know, you get Matt or Dwayne. You get us, and, you know, we spend time with you. We know you, and we do the very best we can for you. So,
And if they need to find you, they can just go to Starbucks and probably see you guys there drinking coffee in the morning for about 30 minutes.
And local places as well. We like Brewed Awakenings. We're going to try the place you recommended earlier, and Sip is a great place to get some lunch. So
Yep.
we're not
Do
just
coffee and cocktails, but we'll have to do a coffee circuit podcast.
Oh yeah,
I think
yeah.
that
There's
would
some
be
great
great.
places here.
we're in for that. Absolutely.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being on today. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome, and we will look forward to talking with you later as well and kind of getting an update. But thanks for being on the LOZ Podcast Network.
Perfect. Thanks,
Thank
Ken.
you, Ken. Thank you so
All right,
much.
everybody. Till the next time, it's Ken Lawler
All
on
right.
the LOZ Podcast Network.